So you're looking to engine swap your Ae92. Well, you're in the right place. Let's talk about the options that you have, how difficult it may be, and if they're even worth doing. Now, if you are tuning in for the first time, be sure to subscribe if you want to see more cool Ae92 content just like this one. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, if you're anything like me, you have multiple Ae92s or you're just in general obsessed with them. So, you're obsessed with them, but they're not as powerful as you may want them to be. Maybe you're being challenged on the streets or something, and you want more power. Well, let's go ahead and talk about more power, So engine swaps, typically, if you have an SR5 Ae92, you're typically looking for the iconic 4AGE 16-valve engine. Now, they're not at all that powerful, but compared to the SR5, they got balls. They're pretty quick, they're pretty peppy, they're fun. Way better than the SR5's 4AF and 4AFE. The 4AGE is just on a different level between those or the 4AC that's in the Ae86. But aside from the 16-valve 4AGE, what's some engine swap that we could typically look at that a lot of people generally go to? So typically the engine swaps that they go to other than the 4AGE is the 2ZGE. Now the 2ZGE was in the Toyota Celica, around the 2000s Toyota Celica. Those were pretty iconic, very modifiable. Stock from the gate, they made 160 horsepower, which is way better than what we have in our Ae92s. And they have some decent aftermarket support. Those engines were also found in the Lotus, but it was a different version. But still, these Celica engines are really awesome. And a lot of people have done the swap already on these Ae92s, so it shouldn't be too daunting. I've seen some videos in some forums on how to go about the process. It's not too hard to retrofit in. You gotta customize the motor mounts a little bit, and then it's just all about wiring. But for the most part, it's not too bad. I'd say it's a 5 out of 10. It could be difficult and it could be not as bad. So I don't want to speak because it's not from my personal experience that I've done one, but it's not too hard on the list of engine swaps. So definitely consider the 2ZZGE. Good power straight from the factory, and you could of course modify them and even make them more powerful, and they rev up just as high as the 4AGE, even I think a bit higher. So that's a pretty cool thing. So definitely consider the 2ZZGE. Also, adding on top of that, they actually made 180 horsepower, so that's 20 more horsepower than I told you previously. And they're found in multiple different cars, like the Matrix, like the Pontiac Vibe, the Toyota Celica. They're found in multiple cars, so it makes them more of an accessible engine. Maybe you could go to a junkyard to get it, but like I said, 2ZZGE, good engine build. Now, adding on top of that list, going back to the 4AGE, there's actually another 4AGE that makes more power than our 16-valve 4AGEs, and that's the iconic 20-valve 4AGE that was seen in, animes like Initial D. And, the 20-valve 4AGE, that's the one that made about 165 horsepower. They're not too bad of an engine swap. It's an iconic engine swap that a lot of people do to these Ae92s, especially our coupes. A lot of people do it. A lot of people have done it. There's more forums and stuff about it. So it's not a bad engine swap to do. It's really cool. It's one, like I said, the iconic engine swap to do on any classic old school Toyota. These sound amazing. They rev up so nicely. They're beautiful cars. They have five valves per cylinder. So freaking cool. So, I definitely recommend you doing that. They have good aftermarket support. They're good when they're turbocharged as well. And, when it comes to installing these and the difficulty, they're not too bad. They're not too bad to install. It's mainly you're going to be fighting wiring from what I've heard around, the loom. I've heard that a lot, you're going to be fighting wiring, and then a little bit the motor mounts from most people, they say it bolts up straight up pretty great. But a lot of people, from what I hear, is the wiring. So, not too bad of a swap, pretty straightforward. All the, 4AGEs, 20 valves, they're really straight up engines that are pretty easy to swap. Sometimes it just comes down to wiring. As for the next engine on our list, it is the 3S GTE. Now this badass was a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine that made 182 all the way to 256 depending on which one you got and what year. Now these engines were freaking awesome, and now when it comes to the Ae92, it's a little bit difficult to install. It takes a decent amount of fabrication from what I've heard, and it's more upper on the list of difficulty. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not one that I would recommend someone who hasn't done an engine swap. Unless you're really dedicated and you really are passionate and want to do it, go for it. Just plan it out, be realistic, and save up a decent amount of money. And these swaps are more, you gotta have a good amount of money for them, or you gotta have a good amount of time for them, because you're gonna need both pretty much. So it's not, you know, it's not impossible, but it takes a lot of fabrication compared to all the other engine swaps. All the engine swaps are a lot easier in my opinion than the FreeS GTE. Very doable, but like I said, FreeS GTE is, you know, up there. But you got a lot more power output, and straight out the gate, it's turbocharged from factory. So that's pretty cool. You could also do a FreeS GE swap, but generally everyone goes for the FreeS GTE. And as for the next one, it is the 7AGE that you maybe never heard about. The 7AGE wasn't an actual engine that was produced. However, it's a Frankenstein engine. So pretty much what a 7AGE is, a 16 valve 4AGE cylinder head put on top of a 7AF block. Now the 7AF block had a longer stroke. It was pretty much like, it was a 1.8 liter. So you're putting a 1.8 liter block, and we're getting a nice flowing 4AGE 16 valve head, putting it on top. You're gonna use, but there's a couple parts that go into it, but it makes it a lot more of a cooler engine. A 7AGE can produce some freakishly awesome results. So I definitely recommend you guys getting into that. I'll try to link some information about the 7AGE below, but it's definitely an option that some people have done. I haven't seen it too often, the Ae92s, but there is one person I know that freaking built their Ae92, turbocharged it with the 7AGE, and it is freaking beast. I swear I will link it down below. Don't worry guys, I got you. Check the description. Now I know what you're thinking. All right, Brian, what about the pricing for all these engine swaps? Well, how much is it gonna cost? Can I get into realistically? Well, the best bang for your buck out of all of them, 2ZZGE. Depending on what area you are in, you can get them from junkyards very easily. You can find a totaled Celica or a Matrix or a Pontiac Vibe. You could get those cars, get, you know, that parts car and use it and use everything from it to incorporate into your Ae92 for the swap. So it's easy peasy. You could probably, you know, get a very cheap totaled one of those cars, and that'll be very cost effective. However, for all the other engine swaps are pretty pricey. The next one that's kind of the cheapest would be the 16 valve 4AGE, depending on who you get it from, because those are, you're generally only going to find them on like Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that. So hopefully if you get a good deal, those 16 valve 4AGEs don't go for too much. They're going up in value, but you know, hopefully you can find them pretty cheap. 20 valves generally stay at the same amount of pricing. They're generally around 2,000 to 3,000 for pretty much the whole swap, depending on, you know, where you get it from. But generally JDM sellers sell it with the transmission, the harness, all that cool stuff. So you can generally get it from 2,000 to 3,000 for the 20 valve 4AGE. As for FreeS GT, that's the priciest one in the buck. So those are generally from 2,500 to 3,000. I've seen them to 3,500. They're pretty pricey, man. And that's not even including all the fabrication work that you're going to need on it. So that's why I'm saying the FreeS GT is the coolest. However, it is the priciest. But if you're dedicated, you have the fabrication in you, you have that fire in you, and you have the money, go for it. But if I had to recommend you one, it would definitely be, if you have SR5, you know, the 4AGE 16 valve is a good one. 2ZZGE is the best one. I'd recommend you straight out the gate. Cheapest one to do. You can make good power straight out the gate, good aftermarket support. Lots of cars have it, so go for the 2ZZGE when it comes to engine swapping your Ae92. Now as the days go by, I will continue to work on all the cars I have. I gotta finish up this daily Corolla, my Honda Civic that's having head gasket problems. But I'll get these two out of the way, and then hopefully I'll get to this right-hand drive Corolla. But as I continue to make these cars get back to their true selves, I'll continue to put out beautiful content on these cars. So thank you guys for following along. If you want to see an awesome video on the Ae92, be sure to click this video right here.